Welcome back to the Bluechip Breakdown, Vols fans. I'm your host, Bull. And for anybody that was wondering what happened to the baseball game versus Florida yesterday, that was scheduled to today, okay? So it was postponed, and it's going to be played today at 3 p.m., and then the next game is going to be played 45 minutes after the first one ends. We'll still be playing that third game on Saturday, as far as I know, at 6:30. We've got two more series left until we get to the SEC tournament, and that is going to be on May the 21st. And our softball team started their series versus Kentucky yesterday. They won that game 8-3, and they'll be playing today at 6 p.m. Then they'll be playing again tomorrow at 2 p.m. After that, they are heading to the SEC tournament. All right, so in today's video, we will be covering track and field. They're coming off of a really big week, and they're heading into the SEC meets. We'll also be talking about our football team and what's going on with them behind the scenes, because for us as fans, it's not a whole lot for us to digest, from a news perspective. It's kind of a, slow period for us, but this might be the most critical part of the season for the football team. So we'll talk about what the players are kind of going through, what the coaches are doing, and that will also be encompassing rehab, players that are trying to get back healthy, what their status is, and, transfer portal news and notes, and recruiting as well. So please make sure, as always, to like and subscribe to the channel. So let's start off with track and field, where our Volunteers have been very dominant over the past week or so. We'll kick it off with the Desert Heat Classic, where we had 7 victories. And the first one was with our women's 4x1 team, who set a Tennessee record with a time of 42.52 in the 4x1. That's number 1 in the NCAA this season. It's number 7 all time. And that team was comprised of Jaisha Sears, Denisha Page, Jade Searman, and Dejora Miles. Next up, we have Denisha Page, who wins the 100 meters at this event with a time of 11:11, and she also won the 200 meters with a time of 22:61. And our men's 4x1 team also came in first place with a time of 39.1. That team was comprised of Javante Harding, Devontae Howell, Tamars McCallum, and Emmanuel Bynum. And Javante Harding also wins the 200 meters with a time of 20:48. Our women's 4x4 team comes in first place with a time of 3:28.53. That team was comprised of Javanya Valcourt, Kyla Robinson, Hubbard, Brianna White, and Dejora Miles. And the final victory in the Desert Heat Classic comes from freshman Grant Campbell, who jumped 2.16 meters in the high jump. Now on to the Clarkwood Invitational. Sarah Schmidt sets a school record in the pole vault by going over 4.33 meters. And finally, our women's distance team gets a 1-2-3-4 sweep in the 5K at the App State Open. All right, so on to the football team. It's been rumored that Tennessee has been interested in a couple of cornerbacks. The first one that we'll talk about is D'Angelo Pons. He's from James Madison. He was a true freshman last season, 5 foot now, 162 pounds. He's from West Park, Florida. He had 33 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 12 pass deflections. And the next player is going to be Javion Cole from San Jose State. He is a sophomore, 5'10", 184 pounds. He's from Oakland, California. He had 28 solo tackles, 3 interceptions, and 10 pass deflections last season. Now, Pons is a player that the insiders have already kind of shot down as a real prospect for our Volunteers. I would say the same thing about Javion Cole, okay? He's only 5'10". We typically are not going out there and targeting players that are under about 6 feet tall. Now, Boot Carter will be the only exception to that, but we see how special he is as a true freshman. Now, with Javion Cole, I did watch his film versus Oregon State. I don't want to say that he's a bad football player by any means, because he does look like a really solid player. He just doesn't look like a player that I would think our staff would want to go out and target. He just doesn't fit really anything that we want with our players. Doesn't look like he's going to be great in man-to-man coverage. Again, doesn't have that length. He's not a very big player. He's not, very physical. He's got some pretty long arms for his height at 5'10", but like we just talked about, we usually target players that are, 6 feet and up. So their arms are going to be a lot longer. They're, a lot better in coverage, things like that. I honestly don't feel like he was even the best cornerback on his team last season. So I just don't really see that being, like a realistic possibility. Sometimes players will say, hey, I got an offer from this school or from that school, to try to increase their buzz and, their stock into the, in the transfer portal. I kind of think that that's what's going on with Javion Cole, but we don't know that for sure. I haven't really heard the insiders or coaches, anyone else, speak on Javion Cole. Maybe he is a player that they have identified as someone that we want to bring in. Again, I've only watched one game, but I did watch the entire game, every single snap that he had, and I just was not very impressed. So we will move on to the offseason for our football team. All right, now let's talk about our football team, what's going on with them. So for the student athletes, they're going to be obviously finishing up school, classes, all that good stuff. Finals will be coming up here shortly. And I would say most of, if not all of them, will be taking at least one summer class. Usually you'll take 1 to 2 classes over the summer. It's going to be the classes that you would probably struggle with a little bit more so that, that load isn't as strenuous in the actual season. And we've got several players. I would say most of the team, probably 80 to 90% of the guys want to get bigger, faster, and stronger. But then there's also another percentage of players that want to maybe cut some weight, get into some better shape, and get a little bit quicker that way. So everyone's just working to do that. And heading into summer ball, you lose so much weight going through all these practices out there in that heat. I mean, most of it's going to be water weight, but you're going to burn a ton of calories. You don't really have a whole lot of time to do a lot of eating and kind of sitting around. You're moving all the time. And I'll kind of talk about that schedule, at least the way that it was whenever I was in school, here in just a minute. But we've also got the players that are kind of going to be going through their rehabs or just trying to get back healthy. And we heard some good things about Brew. Sounds like he's in a really good spot. I think that that's huge. Hopefully he can get out on the field, fully padded and not do any contact stuff over the summer, but at least be able to kind of run through a few drills. I think that that's going to be big to get him back into football shape so that by week 1, he's ready to rock and roll. And then I'm also hearing that Cam Seldon is in a really good spot with his rehab. He's a player that the insiders have said they're not really expecting him to be back until like the end of September to maybe early October. And just for me personally, based off of the timelines that we've seen since Coach Heupel has been up in Knoxville, it seems like it's about a month after what we are expecting for the players to get back before they do get back. Hopefully Cam Seldon is going to be different, okay, in that aspect, because I did say, hey, man, if Cam can't go until like October, we need to go out and get somebody. But it does sound like everything is trending in the right direction because we haven't really targeted any running backs. So I'm definitely going to be trusting the staff. They know these players and, the ins and outs a lot better than we would on this channel. So hopefully we can have Cam Seldon back by maybe mid to late September. If that happens, we are in a phenomenal position because I think that we're pretty much set everywhere else. Now on to what the coaches are going to be doing. Well, at this point, we've got 3 coaches out on the road. Coach Inge is in the middle state of Tennessee checking in on players. And whenever these coaches go out there, what they're going to be doing is, either kind of talking to some prospects, some guys that we've already offered, trying to close out on that whole deal. But you're also going to be identifying some more talent because it's always going to be a new influx of talent, whether it's true freshmen or whether it's just a player that how we kind of heard about with Arion Carter that was 5'4". Now they're 6'1", 225 pounds, and they can move. So we're looking out for that and just trying to get that head start on the upcoming classes. And it also sounds like Coach Sims is going to be in the Pennsylvania area. And we've also got Coach Martinez, who's wrapping up his week down in Florida, checking on prospects like 4-star cornerback Jalen Waters and 4-star safety Keon Young. Now, Keon Young is from Lakeland. Typically, those players go to Florida. You can see right here that he's projected to be going to Florida. But this is all just part of the process. It's what you have to do. You've got to check in on players, even if you've got an outside shot. So happy to hear that from our staff. And we'll have several more coaches going out on the road throughout the entire spring evaluation period. This is a really, really critical point for us because what we're doing is we're making sure that the players that are committed to Tennessee will stay committed. We're talking to the players that we've offered that are high up on our board, and we're trying to, close that gap between us and whatever school they're trending to. And we also have to, like we talked about earlier, identify the talent for future classes. So we've also got the big 865 live event coming up at the end of this month. Sounds like it's going to be a ton of blue chip players. Now, at this event, what we're going to be doing is having a lot more one-on-one time with the coaches, with the players, and with their families. Sounds like it's mostly, like this cookout, and we go out on the Tennessee River with some jet skis, things like that. It's been a lot of fun as far as I've been reading over the past few seasons with Coach Heupel and with his staff. At this point, it seems like we kind of, trend more for players that we're already trending for, or maybe we can flip a couple of players. That's the whole goal. You want to get some guys up on some official visits. So you want to try to get them to schedule that. You want to get them on campus as often as possible from, May to like August, because most of these players will be committing over the summer and they're going to be taking their official visits over the summer as well. So the best foot's going to be put forward for all of these players because they're going to be visiting so many other schools and they're going to be, okay, Tennessee had this, or, we'll say maybe Georgia or Florida or LSU, whoever had this. And again, you've got to put your best foot forward. So there will be a ton of news coming up here shortly. I am very impressed with what we've been doing so far to start this cycle off. We're trending for, a lot more players, a lot more blue chip players than we have been over the past few seasons. That's why I do think that this class has a good chance to finish top five, maybe top three, if everything goes our way. I think that it will. I can just tell you this from being at Buford's practice. There's a lot of players that really like Tennessee that, are kind of trending for Tennessee quietly, and we haven't heard the insiders talking about it. So I can only imagine that it's going to be the same way for a lot of other blue chip players across the entire country. I think that we'll be able to kind of hand select who we want coming out of this process. But I love where we are with a guy like Shady Hayward, who's the safety from South Georgia. He will be visiting us last in July. And he's the player that I am expecting to be committing to Tennessee over the summer, along with a whole host of others. We'll know by about August if this class can be top five or not. At that point, there will be a few players that have not committed that Tennessee should be trending for, and it might just kind of be based off of how we perform in the regular season. I think that Tennessee's going to have a phenomenal year, so I would expect for us to close out on them. So if our class is looking at about, I would say on the cusp of being top five by August, expect for us to be top three, and we may have an opportunity to push for a number one spot if a lot more things fall into place. I don't put a whole lot of stock into the way that the rankings play out on most of these sites because, as we've talked about several times, it's very difficult to identify, hey, who's better between, a player that's at 45 and a player that's at 46. It's very difficult to do. It takes too much time, too much effort. But I love the way that our staff identifies talent. I think that we are the best in the entire country at that. And at some point over the summer, we're going to have 7 more players joining us in the class of 2024, starting off with Jordan Ross, who P and I believe has as much upside, if not more, as a James Pierce. We're not talking about in his true freshman season, but, throughout his tenure at Tennessee, I do think that he will get some good playing time as a freshman, and I think that he's going to be very, very impressive. The next guy is Bennett Warren at about 6'8", 330 pounds, a big guy from Texas at tackle. Can he, or, has he kind of, lost that little bit of baby fat that we kind of saw at the end of his senior season? Will his feet be quick enough to give us a little bit more depth at the tackle position? That's going to be interesting. Jordan Burns at linebacker, coming from Georgia at about 6'2", 220 pounds. Actually, he and I, at first kind of liked his film a little bit more than Edwin Spillman. We've all seen how impressive Edwin has been throughout all of spring. Will Jordan Burns come up and be as advertised for us on this channel? Next player, Cole Harrison, about 6'6", 220 pounds. Not really expecting for him to play as a true freshman, but I would love to know how he looks going up against these other SEC players. That's going to be really big for us moving forward. Then we've got Jeremiah Hurd, who has kind of, been a question mark for us as far as he's going to be playing on offense or on defense. He could potentially be another tackle body for us. Very, very athletic. And, again, 6'7", 305 pounds. I think he's got a tremendous upside for us. Carson Gentle on the defensive line, probably more of that strong side DN, 6'3", 245 pounds. He's, like an all-state wrestler and everything else. I think that his game will translate very well. How good does he look, his first couple of weeks up on campus? That is going to be interesting. And then we've got Big Jamal Wallace, who's another defensive lineman. Looking at him as, kind of like a 3 technique for us. Okay, he's a bigger body, 6'2", 300 pounds, but he's got that twitchiness. We kind of talked about him being a player that started off being a skill guy, gains over 100 pounds during COVID. I think that he can come in and give us some more added depth on that defensive line that is already very deep. So summer camp for us whenever I was in school was 3 days. So you wake up at about 4 to 6 a.m. and you're doing football stuff, whether it's practicing, working out, meeting, or just eating and stuff with your team the entire day, all the way to about midnight. I don't think that they practice the same way these days. I think that they kind of changed those rules. So I would say, though, that summer is going to be the time that you will be getting in the most reps. So just to kind of, take you a little bit deeper for us, our first practice will be a, strictly fundamental practice. You're working on all fundamental stuff. And then on that second practice, it's more of an install practice. The third practice for us was with the tennis ball to kind of get past the NCAA rules. And it's a walkthrough where you are kind of recapping what the install was and all that good stuff to make sure that you've got it down packed. Now, again, for Tennessee at this point, for college football at this point, I don't know how often they're going to be practicing over, like 2 to 3 weeks, whatever it is. But I do know that they have to have like a mandatory 2 days off. They're going to be going hard, okay? And this is the time where you get a lot better, right? This is where you're going to make the biggest progress, especially for the very new players like the true freshmen, and really even for the freshmen that are going on to be sophomores. This is where they will get much, much better. So the entire staff will know what the depth chart kind of looks like. But I'll also say this, in that first week, whenever you're going through all that soreness and all that type of stuff, that's when we saw the worst injuries. So if we can get past that first week, knock on wood, big time, then we will be fine heading into fall camp and all that type of stuff. Fall camp probably start at some point in July, maybe August, whatever. But then you're pretty much working off of what the depth chart is. So the starters are going to be getting the bulk of those reps. And, we'll know for sure how this team is going to be looking heading into 2024. But again, y'all, this is the most critical time. We're going to have as much news and notes as we possibly can. We're working very hard, very diligently to get as much inside information as we possibly can to bring to y'all and, just let you know where we stand at. But I still, at this point, with the way that players are coming off of injuries and, just with the amount of veteran leadership that we have, coupled with the, amount of very young talent, like raw talent that we have, the jumps that they're going to be making over the summer is going to be tremendous. I think that this team is for sure championship caliber. But that's going to be it for this video. Thank y'all for sticking all the way to the end. Please make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, family, and other volunteer fans. We'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks. Peace.